My in-laws left my sick toddler crying alone while they filmed my sister-in-law's TikToks, so I banned them forever. If you're just tuning in, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And please show us some love with a like. And comment below to let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from all over the world. The fever spiked at 102.3 degrees, and 3-year-old Maya's tiny body trembled against the couch cushions. Her mother paced frantically through the living room, phone pressed against her ear as she waited for the pediatrician's callback. The house felt suffocating despite the air conditioning running full blast, and sweat beaded across her forehead as she watched her daughter's labored breathing. "Please, Dr. Miller, she's been like this for 6 hours," Celine whispered into the phone, her voice cracking with exhaustion. She'd been up all night, alternating between cold compresses and fever reducer, but nothing seemed to break through. The prescription antibiotics sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Maya had refused every attempt to take them, screaming and spitting out the cherry-flavored liquid. When the doorbell rang, relief flooded through her chest. Isaac's parents had promised to help while she dealt with the medical crisis. His mother, Caroline, had raised 4 children and always boasted about her maternal instincts. His father, Edwin, was a retired teacher who claimed children naturally gravitated toward his calming presence. Behind them stood Linda, Isaac's 22-year-old sister, clutching her phone with perfectly manicured nails. "Thank God you're here," Celine breathed, opening the door wider. "She won't take her medicine, and I'm waiting for the doctor to call back about taking her to urgent care." Little did she know, the next few hours would shatter her trust in family forever, revealing priorities that would make her question everything she thought she knew about the people she'd welcomed into her home. "Don't you worry about nothing, baby girl," Caroline cooed, immediately moving toward the couch where Maya lay whimpering. "Grandma's here now. You go handle that doctor situation." She waved Celine toward the kitchen with the confidence of someone who'd navigated countless childhood illnesses. Edwin nodded approvingly, settling into the armchair with his reading glasses perched on his nose. Celine felt her shoulders relax for the first time in hours. These were Isaac's parents, people who'd helped raise him into the loving father and husband he'd become. Surely they understood the gravity of the situation. Maya needed constant monitoring, careful temperature checks every 30 minutes, and gentle coaxing to drink fluids. The antibiotics were crucial, but they required patience and creativity to get a sick toddler to cooperate. "I've written everything down," Celine explained, pointing to the detailed notes taped to the refrigerator. "Temperature log, medicine schedule, emergency numbers. Isaac is stuck in that board meeting until 5, but—" "Honey, we got this," Edwin interrupted, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that had commanded respect in classrooms for 30 years. "Go make your calls. This little angel will be right as rain with Grandpa and Grandma here." Linda rolled her eyes from the corner, her fingers already dancing across her phone's screen. "Y'all act like kids are rocket science," she muttered. "It's just babysitting." As Celine retreated to the master bedroom to call the pediatrician back, she felt guilty for the nagging worry in her stomach. These were family members who loved Maya unconditionally. What could possibly go wrong in a few hours? The bedroom door clicked shut, and Celine immediately dialed Dr. Miller's emergency line. Through the thin walls, she could hear Caroline's voice taking on that animated, storytelling tone she used at family gatherings. "Now, Linda, baby, we need to talk about this TikTok situation. Your followers are waiting, and this lighting in here is absolutely perfect." Celine paused mid-dial, confusion creeping through her chest. TikTok? Right now? But maybe they were just trying to distract themselves while keeping an eye on Maya. Surely Caroline wouldn't prioritize social media over her sick granddaughter. "Hello, this is Dr. Miller returning your call about Maya Williams," the familiar voice crackled through the phone. Relief flooded through Celine as she focused on the medical conversation, explaining symptoms and timeline with the precision of a worried mother who'd been documenting everything. From the living room came the sound of furniture being moved, followed by Linda's excited squealing. "Oh my God, yes. The natural light is hitting just right. We can get at least 10 videos done before it changes." Chair legs scraped against hardwood and footsteps shuffled around rapidly. "Mrs. Williams, I need you to bring Maya in immediately," Dr. Miller's voice cut through her distraction. A fever that high for this long, combined with her refusal to take antibiotics, requires immediate attention. We need to rule out serious complications. Celine's blood ran cold. How immediately? Within the next hour. I'll call ahead to the urgent care facility. Her hands trembled as she ended the call. 1 hour. She needed to prepare Maya for transport, gather medical records, and coordinate with Isaac. But first she needed her in-laws to understand the urgency. Celine burst through the bedroom door, medical urgency propelling her forward. We need to leave for urgent care right now. Dr. Miller says. The words died in her throat as she witnessed a scene that defied comprehension. The living room had been transformed into a makeshift photo studio. The coffee table was pushed against the wall, furniture rearranged to create a backdrop, and ring lights blazed from multiple angles. Linda posed in the center, wearing a crop top and designer jeans, her phone mounted on a tripod as upbeat music pulsed from a Bluetooth speaker. But it was Maya that made Celine's world tilt sideways. Her sick daughter sat propped against pillows on the floor, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks, reaching weakly toward where her grandparents should have been. Instead, Caroline crouched behind the camera setup, shouting direction. Linda, baby, give me that sultry look. Your followers love the confident energy. Edwin stood off to the side, holding a reflector board to bounce light onto his younger daughter. Neither of them glanced toward their suffering granddaughter, who had clearly been crying for some time. Her tiny voice called out, Mama, in a hoarse whisper that cut through the music like a knife. What in the hell is happening here? Celine's voice erupted with a fury she didn't recognize. She scooped Maya into her arms, feeling the blazing heat radiating from her small body. The child immediately buried her face against her mother's neck, her sobs intensifying with relief. Oh, hey baby, Caroline said casually, not looking away from the camera. We're just helping Linda with her content. Maya's been fine, just sitting there quiet. Fine. Celine's voice cracked with disbelief as she cradled her burning daughter. She's sitting on the floor crying with a 102-degree fever while you're playing Hollywood producer? Maya's tiny fingers clutched desperately at her mother's shirt, her body shaking with exhaustion and illness. The music continued pounding as Linda struck another pose, completely oblivious to the confrontation erupting around her. Caroline finally looked up from the camera, her expression shifting from confusion to defensiveness. Now, Celine, don't be dramatic. She wasn't crying that long, and we were right here watching her. Watching her. Celine's voice rose to a pitch she'd never heard from herself. You moved all the furniture. You set up lights. How long has she been sitting there alone while you three played director? Edwin lowered the reflector, his teacher's authority crumbling under the intensity of her accusation. Listen, young lady, we were multitasking. Kids her age sleep most of the time when they're sick anyway. The absurdity of his statement hit Celine like a physical blow. Sleep? Maya was sitting upright, tears cutting tracks through the sweat on her fevered face, clearly having been awake and distressed for an extended period. The medicine schedule she'd carefully written out remained untouched on the refrigerator, and the water cup sat empty on the kitchen counter. Turn off that music, she screamed, her composure finally shattering. Turn it off right now. Linda paused mid-pose, finally registering the chaos around her. Damn, why is everybody yelling? We're just making content. The casualness in her voice, the complete disconnect from the reality of a sick child, sent ice through Celine's veins. How long? Celine demanded, her voice deadly quiet as she held Maya close. How long has my daughter been sitting there crying while you filmed this nonsense? The silence stretched unbearably as 3 pairs of eyes avoided her gaze. Linda busied herself adjusting her phone on the tripod. Caroline suddenly found the ring lights fascinating, and Edwin cleared his throat repeatedly without speaking. Answer me. The words exploded from Celine's chest with a force that made everyone flinch. Maybe 20 minutes? Linda finally offered, her voice small and uncertain. Try an hour, Edwin corrected quietly, his teaching instincts forcing honesty. Maybe longer. We got caught up in getting the setup right and she was being so quiet. The admission hit Celine like a freight train. An hour. Her sick 3-year-old had sat on the floor, fevered and frightened, for over an hour while her grandparents and aunt ignored her distress to create social media content. The temperature log hadn't been updated. The medicine remained untaken. The water cup sat empty. She was quiet because she's sick. Celine's voice broke on the last word. Sick children don't have energy to cry loudly. She was probably calling for me for anyone, and you were too busy with cameras and lights to notice. Maya's temperature felt even higher against her chest. Dr. Miller had stressed the urgency. Every minute counted when dealing with prolonged high fever in toddlers. These weren't strangers who'd failed her daughter. These were family members who'd proven that viral fame mattered more than a child's well-being. "We need to go now," she whispered, grabbing the diaper bag with shaking hands. The urgent care facility buzzed with controlled chaos as nurses immediately whisked Maya into a treatment room. Celine's hands trembled as she provided the detailed temperature log she'd been maintaining, the same log her in-laws had completely ignored for over an hour. Dr. Miller arrived within minutes, his expression grave as he examined the toddler's condition. "Her temperature is 103.2 now," the nurse reported, applying cooling packs to Maya's tiny arms and legs. "We need to bring this down fast." Celine felt the world spinning around her as medical professionals worked with urgent efficiency. 4 fluids, blood tests, chest x-rays, all the scary interventions she'd hoped to avoid by catching the illness early and following proper medication schedules. The schedule that had been completely abandoned while her family created TikTok content. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Caroline. "Is she okay? We didn't know it was that serious. Don't be mad at us, baby." Each message felt like salt in an open wound. They didn't know it was serious? She'd explicitly told them about the doctor's concerns, the medication schedule, the need for constant monitoring. The detailed instructions taped to the refrigerator outlined everything clearly. Isaac finally arrived, bursting through the treatment room doors with panic written across his face. "What happened? Mom called and said you rushed Maya here, but she was crying too hard to explain properly." "Crying?" Celine's voice came out flat and emotionless. "Your mother was crying?" The irony felt suffocating. Caroline was crying now after her granddaughter had spent over an hour doing exactly that while being ignored. "Your family left our sick daughter crying on the floor for over an hour while they filmed TikTok videos," Celine stated, her voice eerily calm as nurses continued working around them. "They moved furniture, set up lights, played music, and ignored her completely." Isaac's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, then dawning horror. That can't be right. Mom said they were watching her while you handled the doctor calls." "Ask them yourself," Celine replied, watching as a nurse successfully got Maya to take medication through an 4-line. "Better yet, ask your sister about her new content. I'm sure she got some great footage." The color drained from Isaac's face as reality sank in. He'd grown up in that family, witnessed their dynamics firsthand. He knew his mother's obsession with Linda's social media success, how she lived vicariously through her younger daughter's online popularity. He'd seen them rearrange entire family gatherings to capture the perfect Instagram moment. But this was different. This was his sick child. "I need to call them," he said quietly, pulling out his phone. "No." Celine's voice cut through the medical equipment beeping around them. "Don't call them. I don't want to hear their excuses or justifications. I want to focus on our daughter right now." Dr. Miller approached with test results, his expression serious but less urgent than before. "The good news is we've caught it in time. With proper treatment and monitoring, she should recover fully. But Celine, I need to stress, delayed medical care in cases like this can lead to serious complications." The unspoken accusation hung in the air. Every minute of delay mattered. Every ignored cry had potential consequences. 3 days later, Maya's fever finally broke. As she slept peacefully in her own bed, Celine sat in the kitchen staring at her phone. 17 missed calls from Caroline, 12 from Edwin, and 43 text messages ranging from tearful apologies to indignant justifications. "We love that baby more than life itself," read one message. "You're being unfair, making us sound like monsters." Another text from Linda read, "I deleted the videos. Happy now. Y'all acting like we committed murder." The audacity of that statement, reducing their negligence to inconvenience over deleted content, made Celine's stomach churn. They still didn't understand. It wasn't about the videos themselves. It was about the complete abandonment of a sick child's needs for social media gratification. Isaac emerged from Maya's room, his face drawn with exhaustion and something else. Disappointment so deep it had carved new lines around his eyes. "She's asking for grandma," he said quietly. "Which is exactly why this is so hard," Celine replied. She loves them. She doesn't understand why they let her suffer. The front door opened and Caroline's voice called out tentatively, "Hello? Can we please talk about this like family?" Isaac and Celine exchanged glances. They'd agreed to this conversation, but only because the in-laws had been camped outside their house for 2 days, leaving flowers and food and increasingly desperate notes. "In here," Isaac called back, his voice carefully neutral. What followed would either heal their family or shatter it completely. Caroline entered the kitchen with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands, followed by Edwin, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Linda lingered in the doorway, her usual confidence replaced by something resembling shame. "Before you say anything," Celine began, her voice steady despite the emotional storm raging inside her, "I want you to understand something. This isn't about being perfect grandparents. This isn't about making a mistake. This is about abandoning a sick child's basic needs for social media content." "We didn't abandon," Caroline started. "Yes, you did." The interruption came from Isaac, his voice carrying a finality that made everyone freeze. "Mom, I've been thinking about this for 3 days. Really thinking. You moved furniture to create a photo studio. You set up professional lighting. You played music loud enough to drown out her crying. That wasn't a moment of distraction. That was a deliberate choice to prioritize Linda's online presence over Maya's well-being." Edwin shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Son, we made an error in judgment, but..." "An error in judgment?" Celine's composure cracked. "An error in judgment is forgetting to give medicine on time. An error in judgment is not checking her temperature for an hour. What you did was intentional neglect. You heard her crying and chose to ignore it because it interfered with your filming schedule." The kitchen fell silent except for the soft sound of Caroline's crying. But this time her tears felt manipulative rather than genuine. A performance designed to shift focus from accountability to sympathy. "I won't let this happen again," Celine continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I won't subject my daughter to people who see her suffering as background noise to their entertainment." "You're talking about cutting us out of her life over one mistake?" Edwin's teacher voice carried a hint of indignation that made Isaac's jaw clench. "One mistake." Isaac stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Dad, let me explain what one mistake looks like in our house. One mistake is me forgetting to read her bedtime story and feeling guilty all evening. One mistake is Celine accidentally putting salt instead of sugar in pancakes and Maya spitting them out. What you did was watch our sick child cry for over an hour while you played director for Linda's TikTok career." Linda finally spoke up from the doorway, her voice smaller than anyone had ever heard it. "We can make this right. I'll take a break from social media. Focus on real life more." The offer hung in the air, but Celine could see through it immediately. This wasn't about Linda's social media habits. This was about fundamental values and priorities. The same family dynamic that had created this situation would inevitably recreate it in different forms. "It's not about taking breaks," Celine said quietly. "It's about who you become when you think nobody's watching. When you thought I was distracted with doctor calls, your true priorities showed. My daughter's suffering was acceptable background to your content creation." The weight of truth settled over the room like a heavy blanket, suffocating any remaining arguments or justifications. "We're not cutting you out forever," Isaac said finally, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who'd wrestled with an impossible decision. "But we're establishing boundaries that protect our daughter's well-being above all else." Caroline looked up hopefully through her tears, but Celine continued before anyone could speak. "You cannot be alone with Maya. Not for 5 minutes, not for emergency situations, not for any reason. When you visit, it will be supervised. When there are family gatherings, either Isaac or I will be directly responsible for her at all times." That's like being treated as criminals," Edwin protested. "No," Isaac replied firmly. "Criminals get rehabilitation and second chances. What you did revealed something about your core values that can't be changed through apologies or promises. You prioritized viral content over my daughter's medical emergency. That's not a mistake, that's a character issue." Linda stepped forward, her phone notably absent from her hands for once. "What if I prove I've changed? What if I show you that family comes first? Then in several years we might reconsider," Celine answered. But right now, my priority is protecting Maya from people who've proven they can't be trusted with her well-being. The finality in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't negotiation. This was notification. The family structure they'd all taken for granted had fundamentally shifted, and there was no going back to the way things were. Caroline's crying intensified, but for the first time, it sounded genuine rather than manipulative. The sound of someone finally understanding the magnitude of what they'd lost. 6 months later, Maya ran through the backyard while Celine watched from the porch, her daughter's laughter filling the spring air with pure joy. The supervised visits had continued, awkward and stilted, with Caroline and Edwin trying desperately to rebuild trust while Linda seemed to fade into the background of family gatherings. The TikTok account had been deleted entirely. Not paused, not reduced, but completely eliminated. Linda had enrolled in community college and taken a part-time job at a daycare center, claiming she wanted to understand child development better. Whether the changes were genuine or performative remained to be seen. Isaac emerged from the house carrying 2 cups of coffee, settling beside his wife with a contentment that had taken months to rebuild. Dr. Miller called, he said quietly. Maya's 6-month follow-up shows no lasting effects from the fever episode. Good, Celine replied, though they both knew the lasting effects weren't medical. They were relational. Trust, once shattered, rebuilt slowly and never quite the same shape as before. Do you think we were too harsh? Isaac asked, a question that had haunted both of them through sleepless nights. Celine watched her daughter chase butterflies with uninhibited joy, remembering the sight of that same child sitting alone on the floor, tears streaming down her fevered face while her family prioritized content creation over her suffering. No, she said finally. We weren't harsh enough to prevent it, but we were decisive enough to ensure it never happens again. The boundaries held firm, protecting the innocence playing in their backyard. Innocence that had nearly been sacrificed for 15 seconds of viral fame. Thanks for watching. Give us a like if you like the video and share with us in the comments what you think about this lovely tale. We always enjoy reading your comments.